One man is trying to change the white-centered vision found in schooling by exposing his young audience to the beauty of visual arts and all things Black. Enter Spencer Garland and the nonprofit BRENDA ARTS program. Spencer has been dubbed the Black Bill Nye for making educational programs for kids about Black culture and how our culture intersects with graphic design, fashion, music, and cinema. Garland is also the creator of a children's show called Brenda Lab. He teaches kids about topics key to the Black community, such as Afro-futurism, and how they can express themselves in cool and exciting ways. And I'm so excited that we have Spencer Garland in the house this evening, founder and creative director of Brenda Arts. Thank you so much, Spencer, for joining me on Amplified. And let's jump right into it. Tell us all about Brenda Arts and what you envisioned for Black kids when you started this program.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Basically, I'll just jump into it. Brenda Arts is an interdisciplinary art program for POC youth. Basically, I went to film school. It was very white. I didn't want to watch Birth of a Nation every quarter for 2 years. So I was like, how could I make this fun? How could I make this engaging for kids who looked like me? And I just decided to, take that burden upon myself and figure out a way to intersect film, fashion, music, architecture, graphic design, all together into one giant, blended class, essentially, and allow kids to express themselves through all these mediums as multi-hyphenates, as I am. I think it's just important to see the world as a connected art form. And there's very few people who can do that other than me. Yeah.
I love that you talk about yourself as being multi-hyphenate, because what has often, I think, stymied Black kids is this monolithic sense of what Blackness is and what Blackness means. And you are a self-dubbed Afro-futuro minimalist. Tell us what that means, how you define yourself and how that's expressed through Brenda Lab.
Basically, I grew up in Idaho, so there wasn't a lot of references to pull from, as I'll say. And, I just was online all the time. And I knew I wanted to make movies since I was 3. I watched Jurassic Park. My dad showed it to me. I watched the making of Jurassic Park and I was like, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I'm going to do this thing. And as I grew up, as I got older, as I worked on my filmmaking craft, as I designed clothes, like this piece right here, I just knew that there was other kids that were also like me. Maybe they were adopted, maybe they weren't, but I knew that they had the ability and willingness to create, but not a lot of role models to do it. So, I just wanted to be a role model for another kid who might just be really interested in, I don't know, BMX, but also Bjork. Those two completely juxtaposed ideas can make sense in somebody else's head. I just want them to be able to not feel so alone in the creation process, because there's not a lot of people who I could talk to, what I was into with when I was growing up. So I just kind of made it by myself, but now I'm trying to cultivate a whole new way of being, essentially, through this art practice where I'm talking about history, I'm talking about culture, and I'm just, I'm giving the power back to the kids, man. That's all I can do is they have so much of the world to make sense of, and there's not a lot of answers, but they're asking the questions, and I'm just helping them, make connections between the questions they have and art and culture and themselves. It's all just it's a loop, and hopefully, people are really responding to it.
You are, I so love that your show, Brenda Lab, is inspired by the likes of Bill Nye the Science Guy, which is bringing me back to my childhood. I'm totally dating myself. Love that so much. And I'm just curious, the difference here is obviously you're not science, you're more the arts. But how are young people responding? It's a different era than my Gen X childhood where Bill Nye was like the coolest cat. So I'm curious, how are the kids responding so far to what you're doing?
Basically, it's really changed my whole life. The Brenda Arts Wizards, that's what I call my students. Kids who want to create something, have an idea, then actually make it with their own hands, like magic. That's why they're a wizard. The wizards are really just really responding to it. I showed the first episode, the pilot episode, to a group of my students a couple weeks ago, and one walked up to me and he said, like, I was so moved by this. I want to help animate an intro for this show. And I was like, wow, this has real power. Working with high schoolers, they were like asking really, adult questions about, the intersections between politics and art. They were like looking at Grand Fury and Emory Douglas and saying, like, how can I use these pieces in my own practice? How can I take these aesthetics and put it into eco-brutalism or some crazy other like new niche interest that they have that I've never even heard of? I just love to, I want them to put me on to new ideas and textures as much as I put them on to new ideas and textures. So it's really just like a community that changed my whole life. And the fact that
new ideas,
it's working and it's growing is crazy.
Spencer, we have 15 seconds. And speaking of new ideas, I want you to quickly tell us about your video game that you're creating.
Oh, I can just show it to you. I have this little Game Boy thing. It's called the Playdate.
Ooh.
It's coming out sometime in the near future. And I'm making a movie about a little black boy who's fighting anxiety monsters in this like fantastical New York, trying to understand, the climate crisis, trying to understand racism, trying to make sense of that, but in a fun, goosebumps, black German expressionist way. So, I'm trying to just make things that I wanted to see when I was a kid. That's it.
I love it. Spencer Garland, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing with us. We appreciate you, and we'll look out for your video game.
Thank you.